My father spent 43 years working for the same company. He wasn't rich because he won the lottery or started a billion-dollar business. He became wealthy the slow way. Every paycheck, every investment, every sacrifice added up over decades. By the time he retired, his retirement accounts, savings, and investments were worth more than $2 million. Most people would have celebrated. My father remained exactly the same. He drove the same truck, lived in the same house, and spent his weekends fishing at the same lake he had visited for years. Then everything changed. A year after retirement, my father suffered a stroke. He survived, but his memory became inconsistent. Some days he remembered everything. Other days he struggled with simple conversations. During that period, my sister Jessica suddenly became heavily involved in his finances. At first, nobody questioned it. She claimed she was helping organize paperwork. She claimed she was protecting him from mistakes. My mother trusted her completely. My brother paid little attention. I lived several hours away and only visited every few weeks. The first warning sign appeared 6 months later. My father called me one evening sounding confused. He asked whether I had borrowed money from him. I told him no. Then he said something strange. According to his records, several large withdrawals had occurred from one of his retirement accounts. He didn't remember authorizing them. At first, I assumed it was confusion caused by his health. Then similar conversations happened again. And again, each time Jessica provided an explanation. Each time the explanation sounded reasonable. Each time something felt wrong. The more questions I asked, the more defensive she became. Eventually, I stopped pushing. Looking back, that was a mistake. A very expensive mistake. A year later, my father died unexpectedly. The funeral brought relatives from across the country. Everyone cried. Everyone shared memories. Everyone talked about how much they loved him. Then the funeral ended, and the inheritance conversations began. Within days, the family gathered inside an attorney's office. The lawyer began reviewing assets. The house was accounted for. Vehicles were accounted for. Personal belongings were accounted for. Then he reached the retirement accounts. Suddenly, he stopped talking. His expression changed. The room became silent. He reviewed the paperwork again, then again. Finally, he looked directly at my sister. "Jessica, can you explain these transfers?" Nobody understood what he meant. The lawyer turned the documents toward us. The retirement accounts should have contained more than $2 million. Instead, most of the money was gone. My mother looked confused. My brother looked shocked. I felt sick. Jessica immediately claimed the money had been moved for investment purposes. The explanation didn't make sense. My father hated risky investments. Everyone knew that. The lawyer requested detailed records from multiple financial institutions. The meeting ended in complete chaos. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear on my sister's face. And deep down, I knew something terrible was about to be discovered. The next 3 weeks felt like a nightmare. Every day brought new questions, new documents, and new discoveries. The attorney hired forensic accountants to trace the missing money. At first, everyone hoped there had been some kind of mistake. Maybe the funds were moved between accounts. Maybe there was a reporting error. Maybe the retirement company had made a clerical mistake. The truth was much worse. The money wasn't missing. It had been transferred, carefully, slowly, over nearly 2 years. The accountants followed the trail one transaction at a time. $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. Then larger transfers. 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Every road led to the same place. Accounts connected to Jessica. The evidence became impossible to ignore. My mother cried when she saw the records. My brother refused to believe them. I sat silently staring at pages of bank statements. For years, my father worked overtime. For years, he skipped vacations. For years, he sacrificed everything to build financial security. While his health declined, someone he trusted was draining his life savings. The confrontation happened at my mother's house. Jessica arrived believing she could explain everything. The moment she walked through the door, she knew something was wrong. The dining room table was covered with documents, bank records, transfer confirmations, investment statements, account histories. The attorney sat quietly beside us. Jessica's confidence disappeared immediately. At first, she denied everything. Then she blamed financial advisors. Then she blamed paperwork errors. Then she blamed my father. Every explanation sounded worse than the one before. Finally, the attorney asked a simple question. "If these transfers were authorized, where are the signed documents?" Jessica had no answer. The room became silent. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then my mother started crying, not because of the money, because of the betrayal. That hurt more. The following months turned into a legal war. Lawsuits were filed. Financial records were subpoenaed. Banks released additional information. The deeper investigators looked, the uglier the situation became. The money hadn't simply been transferred. Much of it had already been spent. Luxury vacations, designer handbags, a beachfront condo, a luxury SUV, private school tuition, expensive jewelry, years of spending funded by money that was never hers. The daughter who claimed she was helping our father had secretly been financing an entirely different lifestyle. The family stopped speaking to each other. Holidays disappeared. Birthdays passed without phone calls. Relationships collapsed. Everything became attorneys, court hearings, and financial records. Then something unexpected happened. While reviewing decades of my father's documents, forensic accountants discovered an account nobody knew existed. Not my mother, not my brother, not even Jessica. The account had been opened more than 20 years earlier. Originally, it contained a relatively small investment. Over time, it grew, then grew again. Then exploded in value. The companies inside the portfolio had become incredibly successful. One became a major technology supplier. Another expanded internationally. A third was eventually acquired by a larger corporation. The account had quietly turned into a fortune. When accountants completed the valuation, everyone in the room sat speechless. The hidden account was worth more than $5 million. $5 million, completely untouched, completely legal, and completely unknown. For the first time since my father's death, something positive appeared. But none of us realized that this discovery would completely change the outcome of the case. Because buried inside the account records was a document that would reveal exactly what my father knew about Jessica long before the rest of us did. And when that document finally surfaced, the entire family would learn that my father had been preparing for this moment for years. The discovery of the hidden investment account changed everything. For months, the family had focused on the missing retirement money. Lawsuits, investigations, and accusations consumed every conversation. Then suddenly, a $5 million investment portfolio appeared from nowhere. At first, everyone believed it was a lucky discovery. The truth was much more complicated. While reviewing the documents connected to the account, the attorney found a sealed letter written by my father 3 years before his death. The envelope contained specific instructions. It also contained a statement that made my heart stop. If you are reading this, Jessica has probably done exactly what I feared she would do. Room became silent. My mother started crying before the attorney even continued reading. The letter explained everything. Years before his stroke, my father had noticed unusual behavior, money disappearing, statements being opened before he saw them, questions about account balances, requests for access to financial information. Nothing serious enough to prove wrongdoing, but enough to concern him. Instead of confronting Jessica, he quietly hired financial advisors and attorneys. Together, they created the hidden investment account. They moved certain assets beyond public view. They documented everything. And they prepared instructions in case something happened. My father didn't know whether Jessica would ever steal from him. He simply wanted protection if she did. The final pages of the letter were heartbreaking. Love all my children equally, but love and trust are not always the same thing. If these instructions become necessary, it means I was right about something I desperately hoped I was wrong about. Nobody spoke after the letter ended. There was nothing to say. The legal case continued for another year. The evidence became overwhelming. Bank records, transfer histories, purchase receipts, account statements. Every investigation reached the same conclusion. The retirement money had been taken deliberately. Eventually, Jessica accepted a settlement agreement rather than continue fighting in court. Several properties purchased with the stolen money were sold. Luxury vehicles were liquidated. Investment accounts were seized. The process recovered a significant portion of the missing funds, though not all of them. By then, the damage wasn't financial. It was personal. The trust was gone. The family that once celebrated holidays together barely spoke. My mother aged visibly during those years. My brother became distant. Jessica disappeared from family gatherings completely. And me? I spent most of my time trying to understand why money had destroyed people who once loved each other. Then something unexpected happened. The hidden investment account continued growing. The companies inside the portfolio performed exceptionally well. One business went public. Another was acquired by a major corporation. The value of the account increased dramatically. 5 million became 6 million. 6 million became 8 million. Eventually, the portfolio crossed $10 million. $10 million. The same account nobody knew existed. The same account my father created as a safety net. The same account that ultimately protected the family from complete disaster. Several years later, I stood inside my father's old workshop. Most of his tools still hung exactly where he left them. The room looked smaller than I remembered, older, quieter. On a shelf near the back wall sat a photograph of our family taken years before the money, the lawsuits, and the betrayal. Everyone was smiling. My father looked happy. For a moment, I wished we could go back before inheritance, back before retirement accounts, back before greed. But life doesn't work that way. Instead, I looked at the photograph and remembered the lesson my father spent his entire life teaching. Wealth isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by what you become while building it. My father built more than money. He built discipline, patience, responsibility. And unfortunately, he also discovered which people could be trusted with those things. Years later, whenever people hear this story, they assume it's about a stolen retirement fund worth $2 million. They're wrong. The story is really about a father who understood his family better than anyone else. A father who saw danger coming years before it arrived. A father who quietly protected everything he spent a lifetime building. And in the end, the greatest inheritance he left behind wasn't the money. It was the truth.